I never thought I'd end up in a battle for my life at 52, but here I am, fighting not just for my land, but for everything my family built. It all started with the sound of concrete trucks rumbling down the road and the smell of wet cement in the morning air. I walked out, coffee in hand, and there it was, my bridge, the one my grandfather helped build, blocked off by concrete barriers. No warning, just blocked. You see, I'm Marcus Kellerman. I've lived here all my life. My family's been on this land for 60 years, farming it, building it, and making it our home. My grandfather planted those apple trees, the ones that fill the air with sweet blossoms every spring. I grew up running across the hills, helping my father, learning the trade. It was peaceful, quiet even, until the luxury developers came in. They bought the land around us, 200 acres, and built 47 fancy homes. The kind with swimming pools and manicured lawns. The kind that don't belong next to a working farm. But they didn't care about that. They formed their own homeowners association, and suddenly my farm, my life, was a problem for them. Their first issue? The smell of my compost pile. Yeah, the smell of healthy soil. Apparently, it didn't fit their idea of a perfect neighborhood. That's when Vivian Ashworth entered the picture, the HOA president. A 61-year-old former pharmaceutical executive with a perfectly styled bob and attitude that screamed, "I'm better than you." She moved here from Connecticut and immediately ran for HOA president. Got the job with no one else willing to step up. And her first act? Complaining about the smell from my farm. The compost, the tractors, the things that come with farming. But it didn't stop there. It started with certified letters, then anonymous complaints, and before I knew it, she was timing my movements like she had nothing better to do. She'd park her shiny Tesla in front of my farm, take photos of my trucks, and even measure the tire tracks from my tractors. She wasn't just harassing me. She was trying to push me out. Every conversation, every interaction with her got more hostile, more personal. Vivian hired a law firm, Blackstone and Associates. They started sending me threats. They demanded I prove I had the right to use a road that connected my farm to the outside world, or they cut me off. I offered to pay my share for road maintenance, but she just smirked and said, "Oh, Marcus, this isn't about money. It's about what's best for the community." And right there, I knew I wasn't part of her community, not in her eyes. That's when I started recording everything. I knew I was dealing with something bigger than just a petty neighbor. One day, during a phone call, I overheard Vivian talking to someone named Brad about the final obstacle being removed. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just trying to get rid of me. She was planning to take my farm. And that bridge, the one my grandfather built, it was about to become their way to force me out. The next morning, I woke up to find massive concrete barriers blocking my bridge. They'd cut me off. Dorothy, my 78-year-old mother, couldn't get to her dialysis appointments. My daughter Emma couldn't get to school. Emergency vehicles couldn't get through. And all the while, the smell of fresh cement filled the air as construction trucks with Prestige Valley Estates logos drove away. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't road repairs. It was a calculated move to force me to sell, to clear the way for their development. But they messed with the wrong farmer. I had cameras rolling. I had evidence, 2 years of it. Every violation, every threat, every illegal move they made, I had it all documented. And I was about to take them to court with something that would send their HOA queen to prison. I didn't back down. I spent 2 full days at the county records office, digging through old documents, old deeds. And that's when I found it. The 1962 easement deed that gave my family perpetual rights to the road, not just for residential use, but for agricultural use. The road was ours, and I wasn't about to let Vivian take it from us. But I needed someone who knew the law. I needed someone who could help me fight this. That's when I hired Janet Reeves, a local attorney with a reputation for taking down corrupt HOAs. She took one look at my evidence and filed a quiet title action to make sure the road was ours. Then she dug into the HOA's finances and uncovered something shocking. They'd been overcharging for road maintenance and pocketing the excess money. Vivian wasn't just after my land. She was running a scam. The war had just begun. Vivian retaliated with everything she had. She had the HOA send me legal threats. She had them file complaints with every county department. It was a systematic attack designed to wear me down. But I was ready. I had the evidence, and I wasn't afraid to use it. And then, one night, it happened. The final straw. Someone sprayed herbicide along my property line, killing my prized heritage apple trees. The trees my great-grandfather had planted. The trees my daughter had climbed as a little girl. I stood there among the withered branches as the smell of chemicals filled the air. That was it. This wasn't just about my farm anymore. This was personal. I knew I had to act fast. I knew I had to hit back hard. So I went to the media. I went to the local papers, to news outlets, and the story spread. People who'd never heard of Kellerman Farm before started getting angry. The public support grew, and Vivian started to panic. But she made a fatal mistake. She tried to recruit the county officials, the ones she'd been bribing, to stop me. I discovered her ties to county officials through social media. And when I dug deeper, I found out she was the one behind complaints about my farm safety. She was behind the fire inspections, the environmental reports. She was manipulating the system to break me. But that was all about to come crashing down. One of her allies, a guy named Brad Morrison, the developer from Prestige Valley, was involved in the whole thing. He was using her as a pawn to force me out. And I found the proof. The money trail, the emails, the bribes. Everything was in black and white. I called in the federal authorities. The IRS, the FBI. They started investigating the money laundering, the wire fraud, and the conspiracy. The whole thing started unraveling. And when the FBI raided Brad Morrison's office, they found even more evidence. Vivian was going down, and so was Prestige Valley Estates. The day of the town hall meeting arrived. I walked into that room, my heart pounding. The cameras were rolling. The community was watching. Vivian, in her designer tennis whites, walked in, escorted by federal agents. The moment she stepped in front of the crowd, I knew the game was over. The media exploded with coverage. The story went national. I was no longer just fighting for my farm. I was fighting for every person who'd ever been bullied by an HOA. And that night, when the federal prosecutor stood up and announced the charges, it felt like the whole world was watching. Vivian's empire crumbled right before our eyes. Her tennis club kicked her out. Her friends turned on her. And when the charges were read, it was over. The FBI had gathered enough evidence to put her away for years. But the real victory came when the county officials who'd supported her corruption started distancing themselves from her. They realized that fighting me wasn't just about a farm anymore. It was about fighting the law. And the law was on my side. Vivian's final attempt to stop me was to file a fake police report, claiming I had made threats. But I had the proof. I had the phone records, the receipts. I had witnesses. And when they tried to have me arrested, the truth came out. The FBI caught them in the act, and that was the end of Vivian's game. I stood there, in the middle of my farm, the sun setting behind me. I'd won, but it wasn't just for me. It was for everyone who'd ever been pushed around by an HOA. For every person who'd ever had their land threatened by corporate greed. This was a victory for all of us. Now, every day I walk to my orchard, the air smells like apples again. The sound of crickets fills the night, not the hum of floodlights or the diesel engines of construction trucks. My family is safe, and that's all that matters. So, what do you think? Do you have an HOA nightmare story of your own? Share it with me. Let's stand together and make sure this never happens to another family.